Hey Teaheads, this is Don from Mei Leaf. In this video, how to brew oolong tea. In this video, I'm going to give you the lowdown of the differences between ball rolled oolong and strip oolong, and I'm going to be introducing you to a brewing style that I like to call non-linear brewing. You ready to dive in? The tasting that we're going to be doing today comes from this tea genres flight box. These are two new boxes that have just been released this weekend. The first one, due to popular demand, is our Mei Leaf tea tasting selection flight box. This contains 8 teas, 2 servings of each, so 16 sessions in total, and they contain some stellar Mei Leaf teas, so that if you wanted to try a wide range of Mei Leaf teas, then you can, and obviously it makes a great gift for those of you who want to buy something for Christmas for people who you want to introduce to true tea. I'll put a list of all the teas in this box so you can see there are only winners in this box. The second flight box is new in. This is our tea genres tasting selection. Inside here are 3 different experiences, 3 different comparative tastings. So the first comparative tasting is comparing Japanese green tea versus Chinese green tea, so that you can really educate your palate in the differences between these different styles of green tea. The second comparative tasting is what we're doing today, which is ball rolled versus strip oolong tea, and the last one is raw versus ripe PuErh tea. So in one box, you've got 3 different experiences comparing directly 2 different variations of a particular style of tea. A really great way to educate your palate, and a lovely gift for anyone who really wants to educate themselves in true tea. These are some of the classic questions that we get asked. What is the difference between Japanese and Chinese green? What's the difference between ball and strip? And of course, what's the difference between ripe and raw PuErh? So today we are going to be doing ball rolled versus strip oolong tea. Specifically, we have Alishan cream here, and we've got Summer Haze, a Wee Yencha Rock Oolong. Let's quickly scope these teas. They're both from spring 2019. The Alishan cream is the Jin Shuen variety. The Summer Haze is the Qi Lan variety. The Alishan cream is from Alishan in Chiayi in Taiwan. The Summer Haze is from Wei Mountain, specifically Roaring Tiger Cliff in Fujian in China. The picking on these are going to be very similar, up to 3rd and 4th leaf. It's going to be the processing that varies the most with these teas, and the elevation is slightly lower in Wei, 800 meters versus 1,400 meters in Alishan in Taiwan. But the main difference you can see here is ball rolled versus strip, and that's what we're going to be focusing on first, and then I'm going to be showing you this interesting way of brewing oolong teas. So what defines whether or not a tea is going to be ball rolled or strip oolong? In my opinion, and it is an opinion, I think that the main factor here is the variety of the tea that is being used. If I show you the same teas that I've brewed up earlier, and you can see here that there's quite a significant difference in the size of the leaf. If you take a look at this Qilan variety, and if I take the biggest leaf I've got here to try and compare it, so the Alishan cream is about half the size of the Qilan. So what's happening here? Have they just allowed the leaf to grow bigger? No, that's not the case. Simply put, they are different varieties of tea. Now, if you look at the history of tea cultivation, the general theory is, and it is still a work in progress, that there was an original tea plant, tea bush, 20,000 years ago or so, and then it split, it diverged in terms of its genetics to a large leaf variety, which is now known as Assamica, and a small leaf variety, which is known as Sinensis. And the theory is that then the Chinese Assamica then split off and also moved into India and became the Indian Assamica tea. Now, Fujian province is a very interesting area, and it's where the majority of oolong teas are produced in China. And Fujian province seems to have this sort of clash of small leaf varieties and larger leaf varieties. I'm not sure if they are Assamica or if they're a hybridization, but definitely larger leaf varieties. And interestingly, when the Fujianese jumped across to Taiwan, because Taiwan is very close to Fujian province in China, they brought with them the smaller leaf variety for cultivation of the oolong teas in Taiwan. So that's why you see this smaller leaf variety mainly being used for Taiwanese oolongs. They do have larger leaf varieties. For example, the ruby is a cross with an Assamica, but the original oolongs that went to Taiwan and were cultivated there were small leaf, and that's why with this Alishan cream, you have a smaller leaf variety compared to the Chilan here. And I think that it's this difference in leaf size which is the main deciding factor as to whether or not a tea is going to be ball rolled or left as strip. Because as you can see, when you have smaller leaf, and as well, you also have pickings of buds and small leaves with a little bit of stem in here. So you're getting a little bit of a bud set. It's more suited because they're more flexible, they're smaller, more suited for rolling into this ball shape, which means that it's convenient for storage, it can be vacuum sealed, etc. Whereas these larger leaves are pretty much single leaves. You don't really see with Wei Yanchas and with Dansong oolongs, you don't really see, you know, stems with buds, etc., etc. It's pretty much single leaves. And these leaves are larger, are more breakable, and therefore they tend to be left as a strip. As I said, this is my opinion, this is my observation. I'm not sure if there are other factors which are involved, but certainly from my experience, the smaller leaf variety tends to be ball rolled versus the larger leaf varieties in Fujian province. Okay, so that's the theory. Let's dive into tasting these teas, because these tea genre comparative tastings are all about leveling up your palate and understanding the differences between ball rolled, smaller leaf variety, and strip, larger leaf hybrid varieties. And that's what we're going to do now. Right. If you are watching along with me and you have purchased this tea genres box, or you're lucky enough to be gifted this tea genres box, you will see that the brewing instructions on the tea genres box will show you a linear brewing method. In other words, you are taking the same temperature water and you are just increasing time from steep to steep. So 20 seconds with your first infusion, then 25, then 30, then 35, then 40, etc. So it's linear. The brewing method that I want to introduce to you today is non-linear. In other words, we're going to be changing time and temperature throughout the infusions. This comes off the back of many questions that I've been asked on Instagram and other social media. Shout out to Adam, he was the last person to ask this question regarding Japanese green teas, because some Japanese green teas call for changing not just the time but the temperature. Specifically, as you get through more infusions, you increase the temperature of the water and reduce the brewing time. So that's a non-linear form of brewing. Now with oolong teas, as I said to Adam on Instagram, one of the things about ball rolled oolong teas is that actually the more accurate way of showing brewing instructions for ball rolled would normally be that the first infusion, let's say, is 20 seconds, and then the second infusion is 20 seconds, or some people even say less, 15 seconds. And the reason for that is that it's ball rolled, and therefore the first infusion, you're having to put a lot of energy in for those balls to start to unfurl and unravel. And once you've gone through the first infusion, then you can reduce your brewing time before starting to increase it again. So that's a very standard way of brewing ball rolled oolong, and you may see some brewing instructions showing that. Now, we don't write that on our package, because to try to explain that all in the sort of infographic that we have on our package would be way too difficult, and so we just keep it simple. We give you a starting time and plus seconds for every infusion, as you'll see if you've got this tea in front of you. But you can do that. You can take the same temperature water and make the second infusion the same brewing time, or even slightly less, before starting to increase. And the point here is that with ball rolled oolongs, you need more energy to start to unravel those leaves. And this is not just the case for ball rolled oolongs in general, because they are these larger leaf pickings, these third and fourth leaf pickings. They are coarser, they are much thicker leaves than comparing to green tea, and therefore they all require a little bit more energy, especially at the beginning of your session, in order to start to get some extraction from inside the leaf. In other words, water penetrating inside the leaf. If you don't do that, then you are going to have a weaker brew at the beginning, and it's going to have the aromatics which live on the surface of the leaf, but none of the balance that comes from extracting from inside the leaf. And that is why oolong teas in general always call for hotter temperature water. You'll notice they tend to be 95s to 99 degrees Celsius, 205s to 210 Fahrenheit. And that's because they're coarser leaves, they need more energy at the beginning. Now for me, I prefer, instead of changing the time, which is the classic way of brewing the ball rolled oolong, I like to change the temperature, because for me, temperature is much more interesting in terms of controlling and modulating flavor. If you've not seen our Gong Fu brewing masterclasses, go check them out. You can deep dive into that. But temperature has more of an effect on the EQ balance of the flavors. And I call this style of brewing dip brewing, because what I like to do is begin the session with hot temperature water at the beginning of my session, and then as the leaves soften and they start to unfurl, I like to dip the temperature down, reduce the temperature. That means that I'm maintaining the high aromatics. Now I'm still getting extraction from within the leaf, because now the leaves have already become penetrated with the water, but I'm also maintaining those high aromatics. This gives me a better balance of flavor, and it means that my session will last longer. And as the leaves start to flag, as we start to push the leaves a little bit more, then I will increase the temperature back. So we're getting this sort of dip chart where we start hot, we dip down to slightly lower temperatures, and then we come back to hot temperatures at the end. I call this non-linear dip brewing, and I'm going to show you how that's done right now. Okay, so these leaves have already been rinsed. I'm rushing along a little bit. Please take your time. If you've got this flight box and you're doing this comparative tasting, go through the look of the dry leaves. Make sure you warm up your Gaiwan, put the leaves in, sniff those dry leaves so that you get a real appreciation and a full spectrum experience. So here, Alishan cream has got those lovely creamy notes. It is a lightly roasted oolong, so it has a little bit of that malty roasted note going on. Flowers, high mountain flowers, alpine, creamy, malted milkshakes. Compared to the Strip Oolong, a little bit more charcoal, but tons and tons of fruit. Now we're getting oranges and mangosteens, a little bit of incense and a bit of some wood, a little bit of vanilla. So immediately you're noticing the difference that not just the processing has, but the variety. So larger leaf oolong varieties tend to have more fruitiness, tend to have a bit more depth in terms of its sort of deeper, jammier notes, a little bit more woods, a little bit more foresty, compared to the smaller leaf varieties where you've left the forest. You're now in the alpine air. You've got the creamery nearby. You know, you've got cream and flowers and meadowy. Very, very clear difference between small leaf variety and large leaf variety, between ball rolled and strip oolong. And these pretty much become a theme that you'll notice throughout ball rolled versus strip. Of course, you can get dark roasted ball rolled and you can get lighter roasted strip, and so that's going to change the balance. But in general, ball rolled is going to be much more floral, and strip, large leaf variety, is going to be a little bit more warm, jammier and fruitier. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to roll through these infusions. I'm going to do them all at once, and then we'll come back and we'll do a tasting. So I'm going to be doing dip brewing. The first infusion, now these have been rinsed, the first infusion I'm going to be doing with 97 degree water. Then for 20 seconds, I'm going to be adding 5 seconds for each one. So I'm just keeping 5 seconds added to my time. Obviously you can go for hardcore non-linear, where you're doing both time and temperature and fluctuating them both. That's something that you can get your head around, but we're not going to do that today. 97, 98 degrees for the water for the first brew. Then I'm going to go down to 95. And then after that, I'm going to drop down to 90 for a few infusions, and then gap here for a couple of infusions. And then I'll come back around the 7th infusion to about 95 and then about 97. So we're going to do that dip, and we're going to see how they taste. Here we have all the infusions. This is infusion 1, 2, 3. Then we split for 4 and 5. Don't worry, the tea is being kept. We're going to be drinking it later. And then from 6 and 7, we've increased the temperature. So 98, 95, 90, then a couple of 90s around there. And then we went up to 95 and 99 degrees at the end. And what I hope you can see, a little bit difficult because I don't have a big enough, wide enough lens on the camera, but I hope you can see that the color of the extraction, which doesn't say everything, but gives you an idea of the strength of the tea, is the same or very similar through these extractions. Now, if you had brewed in a linear fashion, kept the temperature the same and the time going up, I think you would see more variation here. So when you have the hotter first extraction, you're going to have a darker brew at the beginning, a richer brew at the beginning than you would if you brewed at a lower temperature. Right, let's taste. We're going to do a back-to-back comparison. Let's taste the Alishan cream here, infusion number 1. Soft, silky mouthfeel, rich, creamy aromatics. In fact, let me roll through them just so that I can show you what the DIP brewing does. Stronger slightly in terms of its aromatics, as you'd expect. You know, second infusion is just going to have a little bit more, but it's relatively balanced compared to the first infusion. How many times have you brewed a tea, not just oolong, maybe a raw PuErh, because this would suit raw PuErhs as well with their larger leaves. How often have you gotten through the first infusion and you're like, it's a little bit weak, we're going to wait for the second infusion to really get to know this tea. The whole point of this dip brewing is that you're recognizing that the rates of extraction are going to change as the leaf softens, and therefore you're adapting the temperature accordingly. So you can brew super hot and maybe even slightly longer on your first infusion for raw PuErh, and then cool it down and actually reduce your temperature for maybe second and third infusion. So you're working with time and temperature in a non-linear fashion in order to balance out your brews. Really, really lovely. Good balance of leaf material that gives me that texture, that dryness, that juiciness, and the sweetness that follows, but I'm still having those nice, creamy, meadowy aromatics. Yeah, a little bit more leaf material in there, but it's restrained, it's controlled because of the fact that I've reduced the temperature. If I had kept at 95 degrees, then I would be expecting more of the astringency, and I like this balance. Really, really good. You're still getting changes through the infusions, but nothing that is sort of putting the balance out of whack. So this is the 6th infusion. Again, really, really lovely. The great thing about dipping the temperature is that you are controlling the loss of those higher aromatics, and therefore you can have a more extended session. So 6th infusion, if I've been brewing at a constant, relatively high temperature, maybe 95 degrees, I wouldn't expect there to be so much of the high, bright, floral, meadowy rhododendrons and yellow flowers, yellow roses that I'm getting in that 6th infusion. And it's still there in the last infusion, albeit the astringency is starting to come up because I've brewed for a longer period of time with hot water, but it was necessary in order to get those flavors out and the extraction out in the last infusion. Really lovely balance through the infusions. Let's go to Summer Haze. And let's talk about the differences between ball rolled and strip oolong. Again, the fruitiness comes to the fore here. Getting mangosteen, tropical fruits, some pineapple. Yeah, pineapple, mangosteen, very tropical, very bright, very summer holidays, but I'm also getting some of that wet wood, tropical forests in there as well. Oh, again, really, really lovely fluctuation, but nothing too extreme. This is strong enough in the first infusion, and this one here with a slightly lower temperature maintains those high aromatics. Fruit, fruit, fruit. Now I'm getting a little bit more of the varnishy woodiness in the tea, but as I said, same with Alishan cream. Because I've reduced temperature through some second, third, fourth, fifth infusions, I've preserved more of those aromatics in this one, so I'm getting more, still some of those Asian pears and fruits. Same here, a little bit of vanilla wood creaminess coming through, but very bright, very fruity, and of course, being a rock oolong, nice and mineral. I would say that with the ball rolled oolongs, or the greener oolongs in general, the smaller leaf varieties, that you would probably want more of a dip compared to the larger leaf. The larger leaf, you're having to do less work at the beginning compared to the ball roll to unfurl and start the extraction process. And so you can maybe make a slightly shallower dip for the strip oolong and a slightly more profound dip for the ball roll. But I think this is a good starting point, going from near boiling down to about 90 degrees and up again. So ball rolled versus strip oolong. I hope if you've got the box, the tea genres box, that you take your time, really explore those flavors. I just wanted to give you a little sampler of how you can up the brewing method so that you can really, really take this tea box to the next level. But of course, you can brew in a linear fashion as well, and you'll still get an incredible comparative tasting. So there you go, non-linear dip brewing. Let me know what you think of it. Try it out with other teas. I particularly like it with raw PuErh. Anything where the leaf is a bit bigger, a bit more dense, and requires a little bit more energy at the beginning to get it started, but then you want to maintain those bright, high aromatics for a longer extended session. Try it out, let me know your thoughts, and we can certainly bring this discussion to a much bigger Gong Fu brewing masterclass all about non-linear brewing if you so wish. And if you get our flight boxes, I hope that you enjoy them. Mei Leaf Sampler tasting box and our tea genres tasting box, comparing Japanese and Chinese green, ball and strip oolong, and raw and ripe PuErh. That's it, tea heads. Check out our other videos, taste our teas wherever you are in the world by browsing meileaf.com, and come visit us if you're ever in London. Other than that, I'm Don from Mei Leaf. Thank you for being a part of the revelation of true tea. Stay away from those tea bags. Keep drinking the good stuff and spread the word, because nobody deserves bad tea. Bye.